Welcome back to Attacking Third. I'm Lisa Roman, your host, alongside Lori Lindsey. We're here breaking down the NWSL weekend of games. We've got a pair of ties to go through and that competition. We'll start with Washington versus Racing Louisville. This game happened Friday evening at 7:30. It ends in a 2-2 draw, but at the half, Washington Spirit up 2-0 over Racing Louisville, and Racing Louisville fighting back. It was the Dr. Nadia Nadim. She steps on the pitch for Racing Louisville. She ends up with a brace, 2 assists from Jess McDonald for Racing Louisville. A lot of good things we saw from this match. And we've talked so much about a team like Washington Spirit and how many games they've played in quick succession and how now they were able to have a break, have a full 5-6 days of rest and training and preparation before this Racing Louisville game on Friday. And we saw that at the start of this match. Washington looked more energetic than we have seen in the past. They had a little bit more energy in them. We saw the start from Elwell up top, Hatch, Rodman, Sanchez, Sullivan in the midfield. It was full force for Chris Ward and his squad. We even saw minutes from Kelly O'Hara coming in off the bench in this match. She was able to get a whole half of game under her belt, which was good to see as a player coming back from injury. But really a game that ends in a 2-2 tie. I did not see that coming between these two sides by any means. I had Washington winning this one in our pregame predictions, as did Sandra. But Lori, when you looked at this Washington Spirit side against this Racing Louisville side, heading into the halftime at 2-0 for Washington and then conceding 2 in the second half, what stood out to you about this match?
Well, I think you're seeing some of the pieces come together again for Washington. And I know there's talk about them having like a full week off or close to a full week. I do still think, though, the amount of games that they played and the mental fatigue that takes as well, I think we saw some of that play out.
Mm-hmm.
And credit to Racing Louisville, they came in, they hung in, right? I think for the most part played off the field in the first half. And we saw glimpses of the old Washington Spirit, or the Washington Spirit we're used to seeing, with the likes of like Andy Sullivan and Ashley Sanchez, and then Trinity Rodman linking up really for those 2 goals. I mean, Andy started both of them, and then Sanchez with the freaking beautiful balls and excellent finish from Trinity Rodman. I mean, this is what that we've seen, right? Mm-hmm. However, I do think it's interesting. I mean, this is something that the Washington Spirit will need to sort out. They have conceded late in a number of games. And so, part of that I think is, again, fatigue, but and just learning and almost relearning how to close out games again. Because, I think with so much of the fatigue early on in so many games, there hasn't been time to train. There hasn't been time to refocus. And there are lapses that we're seeing that I think they wouldn't find even acceptable in their game, right? So,
mm-hmm. Yeah, this match was it was interesting. We got to see Elwell get a goal for Washington Spirit, and I was more impressed with her play this week than I have been in weeks past. The rookie for Washington playing up top, I think having play in alongside Sanchez, Rodman, Hatch, Sullivan has helped Elwell. When we've seen her before, it's been a bit frantic play, and she was able to get on the board for Washington, which is good to see, a rotation and a variety of players scoring. When we look at Racing Louisville, this team has grit and they have fight in them, and I love to watch it. Savannah DeMello in the midfield was very fun to watch play in this game. She was controlling a lot of the midfield, more so in the second half, right? We saw Andy Sullivan get the start in midfield for Chris Ward and sub off in the 60th minute or so. And I think losing that presence of Andy Sullivan in the midfield was an advantage to DeMello, because she was able to find more space that Sullivan wasn't occupying anymore, and find those pockets and control a little bit more, dictate more of how the game was going to play. And because of that, I think DeMello is the one that set up at least the first goal that came of it. Ultimately, Jess McDonald getting the last assist on this one. But for Nadia Nadim to come in off the bench and get 2 goals, this is a player that just is so fun to watch play in Nadia Nadim. And when I think she steps onto the pitch, the the game is elevated for Racing Louisville. They have a bit more energy. They have a bit more pizzazz in how they're going to play soccer, and looking to find a player like Nadia Nadim. And we saw two very different goals from Nadim. She gets one with her head. That was a beautiful goal. But Jess McDonald, I mean, continues to lead the standings as an NWSL assist leader. She's a superstar in that sense, and a true team player all over the board for this game. But this was a very odd game, right? Like, this was an odd way to start the NWSL weekend.
Yeah, I'll step back is because we talked about this on HQ as well, and I brought up this game and Andy Sullivan being such an important part for a Washington Spirit, because we haven't seen her have a ton of consistent minutes just coming back from injury and working her way back in. But the importance she is just in terms of problem solving, getting everybody on the same page in the run of play is so important. And I think then you see how that affects the team directly when she's off the field. And I'm not going to be able to directly quote the stat, but I saw a stat too of what it looks like conceding of goals when Andy Sullivan is not on the field compared to when she is. And there's a huge discrepancy, and it just shows how important Andy Sullivan is in that position, again, just to vocally organize and get players on the same page. With a team that's dynamic in the way they play, that is hugely important, right? To have some balance in that. But yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. DeMello's been so fun to watch. I actually was curious if she would have gotten a call up. But I think a lot of that has to do with potentially, earlier on, she didn't get a ton of minutes. So we're seeing in the last maybe 6 weeks max, DeMello starting to get a lot more time consistently and her grow into her role with Racing Louisville. But yeah, she's fun, energetic. And this is a team, I think, because they're young, we're seeing some of the ups and downs or maybe not a full 90-minute performance, which reminds me of like a game against Gotham handful of weeks ago now, where they started off that game incredibly well. And Gotham hit the post like 4 times, but they had enough, right, to like really be able to start the game well, show their energy, show their ability to threaten in behind, and then enough defensively to hold off on that game. But yes, we're still seeing some smallest details in there. Their coach, Kim Bjorkegren, has even spoken to that, right? For them, it's going to be about the little details. But yeah, partnership with Nadia and Jess McDonald, I think will be so fun. It's unfortunate that fortunate for Nadia, because it's what she was working towards to get back from her injury to go to the Euros with Denmark. So she is going to be gone. However, that partnership will be fun to watch because obviously as soon as Nadia comes in, great understanding between those two, quick little 1-2, Nadia's in, and then the threat in behind, the space awareness from Jess McDonald to be able to peel out wide, stay on that ball, and then great ball in to service for the header. So for an energetic team, right, that has like done well in spurts, to get those two operating consistently, most likely after the Euros, should and will be fun.
Sparks flying between those two for sure, but ultimately Washington Spirit and Racing Louisville, they split the points in a 2-2 tie on Friday night. We had another tie this weekend, just 2 of the 6 matches, but this one between Kansas City Current and Chicago Red Stars. This one also ending in a 2-2 draw. Kansas City up at the half, 1-0 over the Chicago Red Stars. This was a slow start for Chicago. We didn't see a lot in their attacking presence in the first half. There was moments of it, but nothing too crazy there. And then in the second half, Chicago gets back-to-back goals in the 53rd minute and then in the 58th minute on a penalty kick. Kansas City ends up with an equalizer from CeCe Kaiser in the 68th minute that ends up tying everything. But this was the first game for Chicago where they were without Kayla Sharples, their center back, who has stepped in seamlessly after the injury to Tierna Davidson, and then Kayla Sharples announcing she has torn her ACL, just devastating to see. So we saw Zoe Morse slot into that center back role with Amanda Kowalski in the outside back for Chicago. We saw Bianca St. George back in the starting lineup. She's been in and out. Ella Stevens up top, Nagasato, Pugh, and Hill. So the presence of attacking features are there for Chicago. And on the Kansas City side, we saw the dynamic duo of Kristen Hamilton and CeCe Kaiser combining for goals. I love this duo. What a great trade for Kansas City to get CeCe Kaiser from Racing Louisville. Her partnership already with Kristen Hamilton is fantastic. Kristen Hamilton ends up with her 4th goal of this season for Kansas City. So now she holds the club record for goals in a season at 4 for Kristen Hamilton. But another tie on the board, 2-2 between Chicago and Kansas City.
Yeah, it was a bit of a strange game as well. And for, I think, with what Chicago's dealing with in the back line, and for some of the young players are having to step in and play a lot of minutes, a huge point on the road for them as they continue to evolve and like kind of sort pieces out. But, going back to kind of what we were saying about, I think it was Portland, about finding the starting lineup, the same with San Diego, right? I think we're starting to see that with Kansas City as well. There was a lot of different numbers. Now that was due to different things, right? Injuries, COVID that they had at the start of the regular season as well. So they had to slot in a lot of different players. Now we're starting to see consistency in their starting lineup. Kristen Hamilton has been a threat, but yes, Kaiser coming in. That also gives, some wiggle room for Elise Bennett, because I think Elise Bennett has been so fun to watch as a rookie, and initially wasn't starting, but then starting some as well. And now with Kaiser, it gives Elise Bennett opportunity to start, because you can play Kaiser in a few different places, or come off the bench and not have to carry as much load as a rookie if necessary, right? So, and it gives Kansas City a huge start off the bench as well. So, I think both of these teams, Chicago, or what are they, second right now? I didn't even see the standings yet.
Yes.
Yes. Well, in terms of the adjustments from yesterday.
Third. They're third.
They have consistently kind of started collecting points. But I think there was a lot of ups and downs for Kansas City, and now we're starting to see them kind of like sort some things out, and starting to find a bit more play. And you brought up Bianca St. George. I thought Kansas City did a good job defensively.
Yes.
Quieted her, made sure because she has been an impact for them in creating opportunities, getting up and down throughout this season so far. And I thought Kansas City did a good job of really keeping her quiet and then building out of that.
Yeah. This back when you were talking about Kansas City's attack, the fact that they were traded in the offseason for Lynn Williams, Sam Mewis, right? They were supposed to have this prolific attack, these weapons in the midfield, the national team players that were going to change the game for Kansas City. And unfortunately, suffering with injury is Lynn Williams, SEI this year. Sam Mewis is dealing with a lot of injury right now. And the fact that Matt Potter has been able to bring in a player like CeCe Kaiser and develop a player like Elise Bennett, the rookie, to play alongside Hamilton and Mace in the front line as well. I think Pickett in the attacking presence has been incredibly good as well, Victoria Pickett. So the fact that Kansas City was supposed to have Sam Mewis and Lynn Williams, and they end up with Hamilton, Kaiser, Bennett, Mace is so great to see. Imagine if Mewis and Williams were here. Honestly, I'm okay with it not, right? Like there was moments of doom and gloom for Kansas City when they knew that they were going to be without Mewis and Williams. But the fact that these other players have stepped up, we're seeing so many more minutes played by Elise Bennett because of the injury to Williams happening. And I'm really impressed with Kansas City and what they've been able to do in this NWSL regular season. This is now their 4th game in a row undefeated. Chicago also extends that to their 6th game undefeated, because these two teams end in a draw ultimately. But I was more impressed with Kansas City in this match than I was with Chicago. I was a little unimpressed with Chicago and what they were able to not do, frankly, because the defense for Kansas City was so strong, so tight. They did a nice job with it. Mallory Pugh, she could have had the game winner for Chicago. There was a moment she looked to pass it instead of going near post. I was watching the game with Jimmy, my fiance, and he was like, does she not have a right foot? Why isn't she shooting this? He's going crazy. And so, it was a good shot when he's yelling at the TV, not just me. But Pugh definitely could have put that one away, and not entirely sure what was happening there. But I think Kayla Sharples being out for Chicago was going to be a bigger factor, and it really wasn't. The defense for Chicago stepped in and was able to get a draw. So ultimately, Chicago and Kansas City, they split these points in a 2-2 draw to end Saturday evening. We have one more game, OL Reign versus Angel City. This was an NWSL After Dark on the East Coast, a 10 p.m. Eastern kickoff between OL Reign and Angel City. It was the fourth time that OL Reign has won a game in 5 games, 1-0. OL Reign, they sneak out with a win. Angel City, they are now without Kristen Press, having to adjust in their attacking end to do some things. But between OL Reign and Angel City, Lori, is this what you were expecting, a 1-0 win for OL Reign?
Well, again, it was a bit of a strange game as it went on. That is the theme. It has been the theme this whole. I mean, there's a lot of goals, and it was a bit strange across the board, right? But with OL Reign playing at home, and I think with the amount of chances they had, has been a little bit of the theme for them, though, right? Dictating the tempo, having a lot of the possession, and just not having the finishing chances. So in some ways, yeah. I mean, I thought Angel City was good defensively. I thought they did well. I just think once Simone Charlie also went down in the first half, then it was going to be difficult to generate a lot of attack, because you're going to have her be able to hold up play or at least threaten in behind. So, and you've already moved Lucy, who has traditionally been an attacker, and obviously we've seen her since Jasmine Spencer's been out as well, being in that right back position, or left back position, depending. But so you're limited going forward at this point in time, right? And limited in having threats going forward. But yeah, as the game carried on, right, we all know about like Megan getting her red card, and the most yellow cards, I think, in any NWSL game. So there was not much rhythm, right? And at that point in time, you're going to lose the ability to, I think, continuously create chances on either side, because there's just so much stoppage in play at that point in time.
8 yellow cards, 9 if we're going to count the double to Megan Rapino that came into play. Yes, so it's really hard to develop a rhythm in that sense. And you just mentioned also Simone Charlie going down at the beginning of this match for Angel City, which not great for them to see. It was the 30th minute or so. Charlie was got subbed off because of that. And I was curious how Freya Kuhn was going to rotate in her attacking presence, and what would happen if Lucy would push higher up the field, kind of how what would happen with Endo, would be more pressure put on her to do that. And ultimately, they weren't able to get another goal for OL Reign. The goal came from Bethany Balser in the 31st minute. And then from there, it was a back and forth. It was a bit choppy. The rhythm was hard to get because of all the stoppage of plays and everything that was happening. It was a chippy game in that sense as well. I believe Didi Herrera had a very good game. I was impressed with her and what she was able to do. 6 saves against OL Reign in this match. And OL Reign's been known to score, right? Or to get shots off, not to score, but to get shots off. And the fact that Didi Herrera didn't just make good saves, but there were moments of great saves where she held on to the ball and didn't bobble it, when if she bobbled it, it would have been a goal for OL Reign in terms of the follow-up and the players' pressure that was put on them. I was very impressed with Didi Herrera and her ability to step up defensively and save so many goals, especially when up against another keeper in Fallon Tillis-Joyce. 3 saves on the night for her in OL Reign, who has had a tremendous year so far. I don't think she was tested as much. Angel City just not putting enough pressure on OL Reign's back line. But I like to see Balser get a goal, right? Like, it's always fun when she can score in a variety of ways. And for OL Reign, they haven't been putting up a lot of goals. As I mentioned, this is their 4th 1-0 win in 5 games. So holding out a shutout is huge. And a lot of that goes to Fallon Tillis-Joyce for sure in goal for OL Reign.
Yeah, no doubt. And it was good to see Balser, and that again, going to the theme of goals and strange. I think everyone's like, did that ricochet off just as hard as it came at her? So it was fun to watch for Balser in that case. Yeah, I mean, I think across the board in all of these games, it is an interesting time to go into international break and ultimately a longer prolonged break for a lot of players who are going into international duty for like qualifiers or Euros or whatnot. So it'll be interesting. And it'll be interesting in particular with OL Reign, because obviously we've seen the news about Tobin Heath coming in, Heidema, Kim Little. I would expect at least Tobin and Kim Little coming in sooner than later, right? With Heidema, I think, after Canada with CONCACAF qualifiers. So it'll be interesting to how all of that mixes in with the players that they already have and how they kind of deal with international breaks, because they're going to be losing a lot of players as well. Same with a number of these teams. But another one that comes to mind is the Washington Spirit, who we've talked about too.
Yes, a lot of players heading off to international break, but NWSL taking a break right now with this international break. So as we look at the standings heading into this break, San Diego Wave stay at number 1. They've been there for the entirety of the regular season, 18 points. Number 2, Portland Thorns with 16 points. Chicago Red Stars in 3rd place at 16 points. Houston Dash 4th, 15 points. In 5th place, OL Reign, 13 points, also with 13 points. In number 6th spot, Angel City. Now the top 6 teams make the NWSL playoffs. Number 7, Washington Spirit with 9 points. Gotham FC and ranks number 8 in the standings with 9 points. Also with 9 points, Racing Louisville and Kansas City at 9th and 10th place. Sitting in 11th in the standings, Orlando Pride, 8 points. And North Carolina with 7 points at the bottom of the table in 12th place. But only 5 points separating spots 1 through 6 between San Diego and Angel City. How ironic is it that both expansion clubs are bookending the playoff positions? Number 1, San Diego. Number 6, Angel City. And only 2 points separating spots 7 through 12. Goal differential is a huge factor. That's the number 1 tiebreaker in the standings this year. Portland, they are plus 14 in the goal differential. It is incredibly impressive to see. Orlando Pride, negative 15. So that's the biggest gap. And although North Carolina is at the bottom of the table with 12 in 12th place and only 7 points, their goal differential is 0, which is a great place for them to be. If they get 2 wins, they jump up the standings to 5th place or so. So there's a lot of movement that is to come from this table. It's still early. We're about the halfway point of the season as we enter this NWSL international break. But San Diego, very pleased to be at the top of the standings. Alex Morgan alluded to that after their match in her post-game interview, that this is where San Diego Wave wanted to be. Lori, final thoughts from you on games this weekend, the standings that we see, anything else?
No, I mean, the only thing I'll add is I think we already think it's interesting. I think it's going to be even more interesting, right? Because regardless of the standings right now, and listen, there's not much that's separating, right? So a few games during this time when a lot of teams will be missing teams could change the trajectory of the season, could not, right? So I think feels like a little bit of good time to have a break, but also buckle up for the second half, because my goodness, there's already been some wild times. So
you take a deep breath, but also buckle up, because who knows what could happen. Thank you everyone so much for listening to Attacking Third. Lori, thanks for being here and filling in. Sandra, we miss you.